Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to today's episode of The Designated Marksman. We will be discussing DOPE, and that stands for Data on Previous Engagements. All right. So what is DOPE? It's data on previous engagements. So we are recording what holds we had at different weather conditions and different yard lines for those weather conditions. Or we are taking one set of data we have from one day of shooting or a few days of shooting and plugging that into a ballistics calculator, which is then giving us a highly accurate estimated readout of all those different weather situations, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Again, this is in the perspective of a designated marksman. So as we discussed in our ballistics video, there are several external ballistic and internal ballistic factors. You could make a entire data book of just one round for one rifle of all the different variables possible. We're going to keep this much more generalized, and we are going to use these charts for taking expedient shots in lieu of us using ballistics calculators in the field. If we don't have time, don't have batteries, have to go super low technology for whatever reason, etc., fantasy land. But redundancy is good. You don't want to depend on your electronics. So even though in our following videos, we're going to discuss bringing the equipment out to the field that's going to be able to give you all this data anyways, it's very important to keep with us handwritten or printed out charts so that we are not reliant on that electronic gear. All right. So we are going to use these charts not to get precision first round impacts. We are going to use these charts to get us close enough, right? As a designated marksman, it's okay if we have to. Typically, it's acceptable for us to miss on the first round and make adjustments. We just need to be in the ballpark in order to observe our splash, our impact, and get our finalized data and be on target at that yard line the rest of that day, right? Cool, right? Man, that was rough. So what we have here is my data book. This page, and I'm opening up to show you, is me tracking my shift of impact from utilizing some standard ammunition, Mark 262, M193, M855. Keep that on hand. What else is going on here is all the different rounds I've shot, be they factory, munitions, or hand loads. I keep track of my groups. I keep track of the box that it is for the lot numbers, and then I calculate a dope chart, as we'll talk more about here in a second, for each of those, and I keep all of this on hand in a data book for my personal records. So if I'm ever having to swap from one ammo to the other, or check what my rifle likes, or compare ammunition as it would be out of my barrel, I can do that. And then here in the back, we just have some data, some wind data, range cards, tensions of my reticle, etc., etc. So, yep, that is the data book. Some loose notes here in the back. And this is what I keep on my wrist, right? So at the top there is open for notes. We flip it open. We've got whatever ammunition I'm currently using for a dope chart. And then we have a picture of my reticle that I can mark holds. On the back of that is my conversion charts. And then on the back of the sleeve that's normally not visible is all of my quick sheets for all of the different MO types that I might have on hand. All right, boys and girls, what we are looking at today is my larger, more detailed chart that I keep in my data book, or I print out a reduced size version of this and throw it in with my ammo can with that specific ammo that's stocked inside of it. All right. So some things to note that's important. We are keeping track up top of what ammo it is that we're shooting. We are keeping track of the muzzle velocity and the ballistic coefficient of that ammo. This is so that if we are using a ballistics calculator in the field, we can punch this information into that ballistics calculator and we don't have to scramble around to try and figure it out. And then we're also keeping track of what rifle this goes to, right? So data charts are not only ammunition specific, but they are also rifle specific. Wonderful. How I do this, I go and I shoot and I test my ammunition at an indoor range that keeps its temperature right about 70 degrees. There's no wind factor, et cetera, et cetera. There's very reduced environmentals, or rather the environmentals are much more stable across the board year round. And so I shoot my groups at 100 there typically. My groupings aren't the greatest because it's an indoor range, but my data is more pure because I don't have to wonder and adjust for all the different external environmental factors, right? I have a very clean baseline of data. I then take that data and I punch it in to a ballistics calculator, and I get information for 40 degrees and 100 degrees, all right? And that's what's going on there. Everything else other than these two columns is all at 70 degrees. So this is wind holds at 70, this is velocity at 70 degrees, energy at 70 degrees, drop in inches at 70 degrees. Here at the bottom, we are tracking all the other environmental factors are noted other than temperature because that's annotated here. All right, 600 feet. Wow. Altitude is 600 feet. Our pressure is 29.9, and our humidity is 60%. Okay, this is also a general average, as much as there can be one year-round in my area, just to keep things quick, right? And to that point, if you were to be a sniper and you would want to go and you would want to have every 10 degrees change instead of these 30 degree swings, and all the way down way low and all the way up high, and you'd want to go out and shoot and confirm all that data, and that's all great, and there's nothing wrong with doing that if you have the ability, the time, and the resources, location to do that. But for a designated marksman, we can be roundabout, right? It's okay most of the time if we get a miss on our first round, so long as we can make adjustments and get hits from that point forward. So these charts are to get us close, not to get us perfect, right? To get us in the ballpark, and then we can make refinements and adjustments on the fly and roll from there. Wonderful. Yep. I do 40 degrees because 40 to 100 degree spread because most of the days in my area land between these two temperatures. Yes, it can be hotter than 100, and yes, it does definitely get below 40, but not very often, and I'm probably not going to be out fighting on the worst 10 days of the year anyways, if we're all being honest with ourselves. All right. Wind, self-explanatory, wonderful. Things that are extra on here: velocity, energy, and inches. Velocity and energy. I'll start with velocity. Allows you to understand where you're going to have possible accuracy problems. Right around 1,350 feet per second, I believe it is, your bullet starts to go transonic, and so for about 100 yards or so until it stabilizes at subsonic levels, you can have increased accuracy validity, all right? So it's good to know, kind of, if you want to be super accurate, keep it inside within its transonic zone, right? So for this round, it looks like about 700 yards more or less is probably as far as I'd want to push it for that. Also, depending on the exact construction of the round that you're talking about, you might there's different rounds have different expansion factors at different velocities. Okay, so that's also something you might want to track. And then energy, there's a big debate on it. Nothing is a perfect picture, but a combination of velocity and energy definitely gives you at least an idea of the level of lethality that round has, whether you're trying to hunt a specific animal or be lethal for the two-legged varmint. That's good information to understand, especially if you're trying to compare different rounds. And then inch drop, sometimes if we're comparing one round to another, it's easier for us to, or at least for me, to think about drop in inches rather than MOA or MRAD. So that's why all that information is there. For this large data sheet, I do ranges every 25 yards. The reason I do yards, not meters, is because everything's in yards here in America. Everybody talks yards. Every range you go to is in yards. So instead of fighting everything and constantly doing conversions, I just submit and run my units in yards. However, I run MRADs. I didn't annotate it here because all I run, everything I touch, everything I buy is all MRAD. That's what I've used in the military. It's what I'm used to. And it's also the direction everything is headed. So, basically I'm not trying to fight the system. I'm using the most common unit of angular measurement and the most common unit of distance measurement, even though it's a little bit backwards because meters and MRADs drive better together, but it is what it is. All right, this is what I use on my wrist, okay? So it's just a condensed version. All right, I'm only going out to 800 yards. Most fighting is going to happen inside 600 yards anyways. You, as a designated marksman, are a precision fires expert, not a distance fires expert. Excuse me. In other words, you want to provide an increased level of accuracy at combat relevant ranges. You are not a sniper that's trying to assassinate somebody at 1,000 yards away. It's not who you are. You are a rifleman that's trying to get T-box shots at 300 yards. So, to make this all fit, we go out to 800. We only do 50 yard increments here, all right? And also we dropped off the velocity and the energy and the drop in inches because that's all like administrative stuff we care about when we're actually trying to get quick data in the field under fire. We don't give a stank about none of that. Same information is annotated, right? For the same reasons. What round it is, information about that round, what rifle this goes to, information about the atmospherics of what we got this data for. All right. And this also, right, if it's like way less humid or way more humid or our altitude or our pressure has changed, then we can know to add or take a couple tenths off these measurements as well. Back into why understanding ballistics, generally speaking, in your head is good to go as a marksman. And then this is the conversion sheet I have. All right, convert MOA to MRAD, convert MRAD to MOA, convert yard to meters, convert meters to yards, inches to centimeters, centimeters to inches. This is ranging for MRAD. This is ranging for MOA, just in case I like have somebody with an MOA optic next to me or whatever, and they say, oh, he's right, I can do it quick without having to do a bunch of conversions. And then identifying target size, which is something else you can do. If you know the range and then you know the MRAD, you look at your optic, you can find out an unknown target size. Right, so if you're observing something and you can laser rangefinder it and you know it's X amount of yards away, and then you look through your optic and you see that the pile of explosives is X amount by X amount of MRADs, well, then you can determine roughly its volume in space. Right. The pallet size of pallet, whatever. Use your brain. Think of scenarios. Be creative here. And then just a quick reminder in case I go full lizard brain, 1 MOA at 100 yards is 1 inch, and 1 MRAD at 100 meters is 10 centimeters. Wonderful. All right. Bada bing, bada boom.